Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to the next lecture series on front-end playlist. So we are here with another next lesson, which is on Advanced JavaScript Part 2. So if you already know that we have covered Advanced JavaScript Part 1, where we have studied about a lot of things, we will discuss about that. We will discuss about what all things we have covered already and what we are going to cover in this session. But before that, let me tell you, if you guys are new and you do not know what is happening, so let me just guide you. So basically this is lesson number 64. We are CodeBeyond by Unacademy. So we are just providing this just free course content on front-end playlist, where we are covering all the topics, all the different languages and frameworks which you should be knowing to become a front-end developer or a web developer. So maybe you're a fresher, you want to become a front-end developer or web developer, then you can go through this playlist. You can understand what all things are there, what all sessions have been I've been doing, and what all things I've been explaining. Once you do that, you will be ready for the session, you will be ready for the interview, and then you can crack it, right? So all those topics are getting covered here. Meanwhile, we have covered HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and soon we are going to start in just 4 to 5 days Bootstrap and jQuery also with Tailwind CSS. So that's our plan, and we are going to start it soon, just after completing advanced JavaScript parts, okay, and some interview questions and some projects. So once we do that, we are going to start some new frameworks and all. Now, earlier to this session, we have already discussed about Advanced JavaScript Part 1, where we have discussed about some of the amazing things about asynchronous and synchronous, and how to use callback functions and what are callback functions. Also about the asynchronous properties, how you can make a synchronous JavaScript into a asynchronous one, right? How set timeout function works, what are the programs based on that. All those things we have seen and we understood about those, right? So now we are into advanced JavaScript. We are going to start with another topic. So here what we are going to understand is our promises. So you're going to understand what is promises. We are going to understand many other things like the event listeners and all, how event listeners are worked in JavaScript. And also we are going to talk about event loop, right, which is the most important topic in JavaScript. We are going to talk about that. We are also going to talk about callback queue. Okay, so these are some of the topics which you are going to learn in today's session, right? Hi Anushka. So when you will start React? Anushka, React will take some time. Just Bootstrap and Tailwind CSS will get finished, and after that we are going to start React. So before that, you should be knowing about all of these things which I'm teaching right now. And other beginners are there who do not know about all these things. So that's why I'm covering all these things. Once these things will be covered, once Bootstrap will be covered, and if suppose anyhow in 2-3 days Bootstrap is getting over, then soon we are going to start React. Okay, so it'll go simultaneously, maybe a Bootstrap with Tailwind CSS or maybe React with Tailwind CSS. Okay, so let's get started. Now, if you do not know about me, then let me just introduce myself to you. So my name is Ritwik Raj and I'm a corporate trainer. I have been working as a subject matter expert and a research analyst in most of the edtech companies. I have 3+ years of teaching experience, and I have trained graduates and corporate employees from Edison and Capgemini. I've trained more than 30K students till now. It is increasing day by day. The subjects which I take is mostly into front-end development, back-end languages, database languages, and mostly into full-stack development domain. And also I do take tips and tricks on how to crack interviews, right? So I think tomorrow is one session where I'll be taking one of the session of tips and tricks part 1, right? So this will be a different playlist. The playlist name will be interview preparation, and I will be guiding you on how you can, what all tips and tricks you can follow to actually crack a virtual or a face-to-face interview. What challenges do you face in virtual? What challenges do you face in face-to-face? And what are the different ways how you can prepare for interview, right? All those things will be discussed tomorrow at 9 p.m. We have a session. If you do not know about all these sessions, then please go ahead and look at the playlist. You will be able to see all the timings and all when the sessions will be coming, right? So that's all about This one. Now I have a very good news for you that you can use my code, which is RIT10, to get a free level sample test paper. And if you do not know about Relevel, then don't worry. In just 1 minute, I'm going to tell you about that. But if you already know about Relevel, then you must be knowing that you have to give an actual test, right? And to help you out, to ease you out the process, so that's why we have given you the coupon code, which is RIT10. Once you will use this coupon, you will be able to get a Relevel sample test paper, which will help you to understand which kind of questions will be asked in the actual test. Okay. Now, the people who do not know what is level, then let me introduce it to you. So basically, many times candidates miss out on great opportunities due to multiple reasons, right? These reasons can be anything. Maybe the student is not from a BE or BTech background, and they are from BCA or BSc, but they want to move into IT field. They have the skills also, they have the talent, they know how to code, but whenever they are applying for 50-60 companies, the companies are not giving a call back, or they don't want to interview those, because the reason being, many MNCs think that what BCA or BSc people will know about coding, correct? But they don't know that they have the skills already. Also, many times what happens that engineering graduates also do not get a chance to get interviewed in top MNCs. The reason being, they are from top tier 3 college, and that's why good MNC companies do not go there, because they want great candidates from tier 1 and tier 2, correct? So these are the reasons why Relevel came into picture. Now, introducing Relevel, this is India's first test hiring platform by Unacademy, which is helping job seekers find their dream jobs, and you can get a job based on your skill and talent. So you do not have to depend upon your any degree or any other people in your network. Right now, what are the benefits which you can get from this? So basically, how you are going to judge on what skills do you have or what talent do you have? So basically, we have to attempt a test for free, and this test will be of 1000 marks, and you have to score above 700. If you score 700, you will be becoming eligible, and we will create a profile for you, which will be shared with all our client companies, or 50 plus companies, including top startups and unicorns are there with us, and 1000 plus job positions across business development, front-end development, back-end development are there. So it'll be really good for you if you will give the test and if you will pass, right? Suppose if you're not scoring 700, if you're scoring below that, do not worry. After 30 days, you can reattempt the test again, correct? So now that we know about Relevel, we know about its advantages and benefits. Let's see how we can register in Relevel, right? So if you look in the description, there's a link given. If you click on that link, you will be able to get inside relevel.com, and once you go there, you will be able to get this page, and in this page you have to just register your number. So mobile number you have to give, and you have to get an OTP. Once you do that, you have to choose the test of your choice. So suppose you are very good in front-end development, so you need to just select that, and after that you have to book a slot when you want to give the Relevel test. Slots are limited, so I suggest you to book it fast. Okay, once you do that, you have to fill in the details for the admit card, so your full name, email ID, birth year, current state, all these things you need to fill in, and also the gender. And after that, you have to fill in the coupon code. So the coupon code is RIT10. Do not forget to use that, otherwise you won't be able to get the Relevel sample test paper. Once you click on apply, click on create account, your account will be created. It will look something like this, and you will have the access to sample paper. So once you open the sample paper, you will get an idea what kind of questions will be asked, how these 1000 marks are segregated, and what all other things, you will get a lot of information from this. So do not wait for anything. Go ahead and register for it right now. And suppose if you have already done it, then all the best for your actual test. If you have not done it, then go ahead and do it. And if you're not ready for the test, suppose that you don't have so much of a skills, you're not ready for the test, then go ahead and look at the playlist, whatever is going on in CodeBeyond channel. There are a lot of educators who are taking live sessions on different topics, DSA, CP, front end, back end, Python, SQL. There are a lot of things which is going on. So go ahead and watch those and upskill yourself. Once you upskill yourself, once you're ready, and then you can go ahead and register for Relevel. Okay. So also please join the Telegram channel, because in Telegram channel you get all the notifications and other updates about the sessions, when an educator is coming live, at what time, with what topic. All those things will be discussed here, and you will get notified about it, right? So this link is also given in the description. Please click on it and join it, so that you will get the advantage of getting notified. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is CodeBeyond, and please hit the notification bell so that you get an idea. You get a notifications in the YouTube app as well. And also please like and share the video if you are liking it. And please share it with your relatives, friends, and other colleagues, or other classmates, tell them that this live session is going on and it's going really awesome. Also, not even for the live session, just tell them that this playlist is there and many sessions have been included and the sessions are going really well. Okay. So let's start our JavaScript and let's understand what all topics we are going to cover here. So basically our main motto is to cover promises, right? What is promises, how to work with it. But sorry. But we are going to also understand some of these small things which we have already understood, right? We have seen in the advanced JavaScript part what is call stack, what is GC, how call stack works, how GC works, right? Many of the things we have learned there, right? So those all things also we are going to learn. We are going to again see how a program works directly, right? All those things we are going to see again, right? If you remember, we did this understanding callback and async, and we did this programs, right? If you do remember about this. Hi Amit, good evening. Yeah, so we did all these codings, right, of asynchronous to explain you how asynchronous works and how set timeout works, right? And we understood how all of these works in the sources inside internally in the browser, right? We have checked out how GC comes into picture in the call stack and how from the call stack any function gets loaded, and once that function completes its work, then the function goes out of the call stack and then it becomes empty, only GC will be there, and once the whole code gets completed, GC also gets removed from the call stack, right? All of these things we have understood in a very deep manner, but again we are going to talk about this with understanding of different programs, right? Now if you remember, we did one of the coding which was on set interval, and that was basically this one, where we understood about how you can run a particular date code, right? And you can see the output. Just 1 second, let me show you the browser so that you can have a look in the output as well. I'm just going to run this. So here you can see the date function was running. Let me just show you the code, okay? Yeah, so have a look. You have the code here, which you can see, right? We have the set interval ABC, comma 1000, and we have written some functions where I also told you that how you can create an object of date and how you can use different functions of date, and you can get the hour, meter, second. And also I told you that 1000 millisecond is 1 second. So basically every 1 second, this thing is uh, getting run, right? So we did this program in our earlier session, and I tried to explain you how this is working, right? And we went to inspect and we went to the sources. We tried to find out how this works, and we also applied some debuggers, and we tried to see how this works in the call stack, right? So in the call stack, GEC will come, all those things will be coming, and global variables will be formed here, memory locations will be formed. All these things we have discussed. I'm just trying to remind you that what all things we studied, right? So perfect. Let's come back and let's try to do something else. So here what we are going to do is we are going to understand two more programs based on this itself, based on callbacks and asynchronous itself. And then we are going to move to promises, okay? But before understanding promises, we are going to also understand about different topics, such like, how particular JS engine works in a browser, correct? Basically we know what call stack is, we know how anonymous, how asynchronous or how synchronous JavaScript is, and how it works, right? But internally we have not seen how a program internally works in JavaScript engine, correct? So we are going to talk about that also before promises. Now coming to the script part, I'm going to just comment this, and we are going to go down. So I think I told you that we are going to talk about promises and await. So that's what we are going to talk about today. This is today's topic. right? These are today's topics: event listeners, promises, await. So we are going to do it one by one, and we are going to see how to do these codings, right? So index and HTML, we have the demo part. You can see here paragraph, we have the ID demo. And here what we are going to do is we are going to write some codes and we are going to see how it works. So script is already there. We can write the function. So let's say I'm just writing here a function. Okay. And I'm just going to print up something here. So maybe I'll call something from the function and I will get it printed. But right now, time being, I'm just writing .init.html equal to sample. Okay. Now this sample, whatever I'm printing, this should come up from somewhere. So I'm putting up the parameter here. Okay. And I will be calling this function somewhere later on, but not now. But right now, just have a look what I'm going to create. Okay. So this is something new which you have not seen in my earlier codings, because this is something how you can embed a different file, a different HTML file inside another HTML file, another web page. So in one web page inside one web page, we have done this using iframe in HTML, but here we are totally using a JavaScript. So this will be different. Okay, this will not be the same concept because it is totally JavaScript. So we are going to create a function and we are going to just name it as, let's say, save file. Okay. And I'm going to just write here my callback, right? This is, you know how to use the callback. So you know that from a function, we can call another function in their parameters. That's what I've told you in the earlier class, in the yesterday's, I think day before yesterday's session, I told you callback is a function passed as an argument to another function. That's what we are going to do. And that's why we have written here the callback. This is the parameter. We will call the argument and we will call the function with the argument. That argument will come here. Okay. We'll write that code later on down, but right now have a look what we are going to do. So just creating a variable. Please understand where I'm using where I'm using let, and what is the use of it. You must be knowing now what is the use, and now you must be understanding how let and where works, right? Okay, so I'm making an HTTP request here. Okay, and that's an object. The REQ, the request is an object, and I'm going to just say REQ open. Okay, here I'm going to say get, and I'm going to just write the another HTML page. So right now in my file, if you look here, we don't have any page in this callbacks. So I'm going to just take one of the file from anywhere and I'm going to just put it there. Okay. So let me just do it. You won't be able to see it because I'm doing it in the another screen. So I'm just opening the folder, and this animation.css, animation.html, which you can see. I hope you can. Okay, you can see it here. I'm going to just go there and I'll cut it from there and I'll paste it in my current folder, which is callbacks. Hi Lewis, welcome back. So you can see here that now you can see the animation.html file here. So now I can write this particular file name in my open. Now do not get confused what is this HTTP request, because I have never told you what is this. So basically XML HTTP request, we are creating an object of that, and using that object we are opening a different file. That's a get request which we have done. So get request means you are getting a file request. So this is the file which we are requesting, which is animation.html. I have put it down, this file inside the same folder so that it will be easy to access. You can access it from other folder it's also, but right now I'm just making it as simple as possible. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to onload this, right, with a function. So please let me know which kind of function is this. I hope you must be knowing what I've written here. Is this an anonymous function? Is this an anonymous named function? what is this? Just let me know, because in the previous session, I think I have told you what all other functions are there in the JavaScript as well, right? So here I'm just going to write request status 200. I will explain you what is this, and then I'm going to just call back. This is an if else condition. You must be knowing what I'm doing. So my callback, otherwise it will give an error. Okay, with okay, fine. So here I'll be writing the send function. So the request is sent, and also I'll be fetching the file. So let's say my show. Okay, now have a look what I've done. The whole program is now written on. Okay, and now you can observe what is happening. So basically I have a function which is my show, which is getting called here. Okay, and this my show, if you can see, this get file is already a predefined function which is saying my show as an argument, right? So this my show is getting called, and this will get called with the sample, and it will print something here, right? Now what it will print, we do not know, because that is written in this code. Okay, so what is written here? Here we are requesting an HTML HTTP request where we want one of the HTML file to get open, which is animations.html, and if it gets opened, then we are going to get the page itself. If suppose this page is not fetched, if some error is there in the name of the file or something, then it's gonna give me an error. Okay, so now let's have a look what happens in this code. So if I go back, one second, I think there is some error. Let me just check. Okay, did I save the file? What is the error? Get file is not defined. One second, this is not get file. This is save file. Yeah. So now have a look what is happening. I'll just close this. You can see that this animations.html page is opened up here, right? Let me do one more thing. I will add its own page also. It's on some headings. So this file is having one heading, let's say, hi, welcome back. Okay, I've just written this much, and let's save this. Let's go back. So now you can see what is happening. We have the page which we are running right now, hi, welcome back. And with that, animation page is also coming, right? So what are we doing here? We are actually fetching our two things, right? We are fetching one of the page which is already there, and the second page, animations.html, using our callback function. How this callback function is written, that also we have seen. So if you look here, this is the callback function which we have made, right? So we've written save file, and we have written my show, correct? Now this my show is an argument which goes here as my callback. So now it's this property, it's his work, save file, which is a function, it's his work to call this my show function automatically. Now we do not care about my show function being called, because we have already passed it as an argument, and that's what is callback, right? So we know about callback. We know that what is a callback? A callback is a function passes an argument to another function, and we do not have to care about that function. Okay, so once we have called this function, it went here to the callback. Now we do not have to care about this function. This will be a work of this function to call it. Okay, so what is happening inside? So there's a request, which we are making for HTTP, we are requesting to open this particular HTML page inside our page. And if this gets loaded correctly, then it will give me the response. Otherwise, it will give me an error. That's what we are doing. And then we are doing requesting.send. This is a particular function which is internal, which is internal of HTTP. So it gets sent. And then this myShow function is getting called automatically, right? So request.send is particularly calling this function automatically, and it is putting out the output. So this inside this sample, what is there? The whole animations.html page is there. And that's why we can see this, correct? Let's say here you're getting hi, welcome back in the beginning, right? And after that, we have the paragraph. If you look at the code, right, we have this hi, welcome back, and then we have this paragraph, correct? Let's cut this. Let's put it above. So obviously, you know what's going to happen. The animation.html page will come above, and then an h1, which is hi, welcome back, should come, right? So if you have a look, this is how it is working, correct? That means inside my paragraph, inside the ID demo, the whole animation.html page is getting loaded, right? So that was one example which I wanted to show you using callback. Now let's move ahead and let's try to use one more example using event listeners. So callback is used in so many different cases. In the previous session, I have explained you how callback is used in here, how callback was used in the earlier programs, also in this one, right? And now what we are doing, we have also shown you how we can get a file loaded directly using callback function, right? And again, we are going to do the same thing. We are going to write some code, and we are going to understand how event listeners can be used while using a callback. Okay, so let's try it out. So in the HTML, what we are going to do is we are going to first of all bring it back, and we are going to create a button. So let's say I'm creating a button, okay, and here I'm going to give on click, and let's say I'm going to just one second, let's not give on click here, let's give an ID here, let's give click, and here I'm just going to give click me. This is the button which I've created in my HTML part. Okay, let's save this, let's go back and let's write some code here. So here what we are going to do is we are going to add an event listener of click. Okay, and if you must be knowing, there are so many programming languages, and one question is always asked in all of the programming languages, that you have a counter, write a code so that it counts how many times you click the button. Right, this is a very famous interview question which can be asked to anybody, that you have to create a button, and once you click on it, it will tell you that how many times you have clicked that button, so that we get an data that how many times the user has clicked the button. Okay, and if something is happening with that button clicking or not. So that code we are going to write. So here what you're going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to create document.getElementById, and here I'm going to just put up the ID which is click. I hope I have not written capital C. And here I'm going to give add event listener, and I'm going to add the event which is click. Okay, now I'm going to create a function. Let's say I'm going to create an XYZ, and here I'm going to write that function. Okay, so don't worry about that I'm writing a function inside the add event listener. You can do that. If you do not want to write it here, give the function name here and write the function in a separate code. You can do that as well, but I'm just writing the code here itself. So I'm just writing console.log, and I'm going to write here, now the button was clicked. Okay, so this much we have written in our code, and let's close this. This is the bracket which is getting closed here. Don't think this will be here. One second. Is there something which is okay? There is a bracket which is getting missed. Okay. Let's save this and let's check out what is happening. So I've written console.log. That means in the console something should happen, right? So let's go there and let's open the console itself and let's click here. So you can see now the button was clicked, right? Once, twice, three, four, five. So whenever you click on it, you are getting that message again and again. Don't tell me that you're not able to see the message. This is the count which is happening here. So that's why it is increasing. Okay. Now what I want is I want the count numbers also to be shown. That means how this count is actually working. So what I'm going to do is going back to the code and here I'm going to just add the count number. So let's say now the button was clicked. Let's say count and let's say times. Here I'm going to just give some space and to this also some space. Okay. Now count is not a variable which I have never declared. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put up let count is equal to 0. Let's save this. 1 second. Also this count will always give 0. So I need to give plus count. Let's save this and let's now see what is happening. Okay. This is a text, not a variable. Cool. So now have a look. Now in the program, what is happening? Now the button was clicked 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Every time it is giving me a how many times I'm clicking on the button, correct? So easy example, we have used the add event listener and then we are doing this. But here we have not used any callback, right? Or we have not used any function, correct? And if you observe here, the closer is also not working, right? So if you look at the code, the closer is not there. Count is a global variable. So in the GC, first of all, count will be undefined. And later on, this is just the part where we are adding the event listener, right? So if I go back and if I go back to the sources and let me just show you what is happening in the call stack. If you look here in the console.log, I'll just put up a debugger and I will run the code. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. So now you can see here in the call stack, you have the GC and we have the count undefined because it is let, and then we have the global value, right? And in the global value, everything, whatever will be there will be defined here. Okay. The functions and all, whatever we are writing, even if any particular event listener is there, then also that also will be there. Now have a look. It just worked here at once, right? And it's gone. There is no closure shown. There's nothing shown here, right? So once this program is run and that's it, it's finished. It just, because it's just telling me how many times you will click the button, it's gonna run. Yes. So you can see here, there is no closure thing which we are getting here, correct? Now, why is it not a good program? Because we are using a particular code which is having let count equal to 0. That means a global variable, right? And I've told you that we should not use a global variable whenever you are using closures. So in this case, what you need to do is global variable use is not a good solution, right? So in this case, we need to create a function here so that we can say that we are using closures. So here what we'll do is we'll create a function and we'll say attach event listeners. And here I'm just going to close it. So now it becomes a closer because this is the parent element which we have. And then inside that we are writing anything. So what is the meaning of closer? Closer means that whatever function you have written here, whatever this function is written here, this will be having its own local memory and also its lexical environment. That means these all things as well, correct? Now if I call this add event listener again, I'm calling this, correct? The work will be same. It will work in the same manner, but now the code is much more better. Why? Because now this global variable is not uh, globally used here, right? We are using it inside a closure. Now if I save this and if I go back to my console, one second, there is some problem. Yeah, problem is I have called add, it should be attach event listeners, attach event listeners, any, okay, fine. So let's have a look. So it is working, right? And now let's have a look in the sources. So here let's apply some debuggers and let's try to find out what is happening. So in the script.js, if I run this, let's have a look what is happening. So attached event listeners is getting called and all the global things are there. Now let's run it again. And now you can see here that count is undefined and attach event listener function is coming here, correct? Right? So attach event listener function is coming here. And now if I run it again, so everything is working properly here, right? And we are having count 0, count 1. One second, let me remove this. Count 1. In the call stack, still attach event listener function is running. It is having its own local memory and its global memory. Okay. So now it got finished. Once I click on it, the link again, once I click the button, then I'm getting a closure here. Can you see that? And in this closure, we have the attach event listeners function, which is storing the count value, right? So if I run this, count is getting increased in that. If I click on this button again, I will get a count 2. Can you see here? Now it will again finish. Again, I have to click on it. It will again have the count value. So what is that I'm showing you here? I'm showing you that in the earlier program, the count value was not getting stored. It was getting just printed. That's it. I was just clicking on the button. It was, the value was getting changed and it was just showing me in the console. That's it. But here what is happening? I have created a closure. Because I've created a closure, this count variable is now locally inserted, and this function xyz, the function which I've used here, xyz, here I've written the function, right? Let me show you here. This function xyz now remembers how many times the count has been clicked, right? So now xyz remembers how many times the count has been clicked, and you can observe it here also. So every time I'm clicking on this particular button, every time this count variable is storing my earlier values and the current values also. So that's why closure is important, and that's how you can use closures in event listeners as well. Okay, so just wanted to show you this example because once you are not using closures, then what happens? What value is not getting stored? And when you're using closures, which value is getting stored and why is it getting stored, right? Earlier, this XYZ was not even there in my previous code, but now it is there. Okay. So that's all about your code here. Let me do one more thing. So I'm just going to remove these debuggers and let's go back to the console. If you go to the elements, you can see here, you'll find your event listeners, and here also you'll be finding all the event listeners, whatever will be there. Okay. So if you run this particular sources, if you'll run this debugger, and when you check out the event listeners, you will be able to find it's working. So let's go to elements. Here you will be able to find all the event listeners, whatever will be coming. Okay. So all the event listeners will be shown there. You will be able to see that click event is getting on and that event listener is working right now. Okay. So let me just click here. Oh, I think it is not showing me the event listeners. Okay, fine. So that's how your event listener works. Okay, this is what is adding event listeners. Now we also have removing event listeners. Okay, so the same way how we can add event listeners, we can remove it also. Now why do we need to remove it if once you have added it? The reason being that event listeners are heavy. Okay, now once it is heavy, what happens is basically if your code is having a lot of event listeners, let's say that if it is having on click, on blur, and all the event listeners at once, right? Now all these event listeners will be collected in here in the elements portion in the event listeners. Okay, even if your code is not running, the program or the system or the browser knows that your event listeners are there and it's going to take up the memory. Okay, so event listeners will take up the memory, will take up the space, and will take time to load your output. Okay, so if in the program you have a lot of event listeners, what's going to happen when you run it? Your event listeners are in a bundle and it's going to take time to load your output, right? And that's why your website will be getting loaded a little bit later, right? That's why for this reason all the event listeners are removed. Okay, so that the time will be less and loading will be more, so that your page will get loaded automatically and in a very fast rate. One more thing that if you're adding the event listeners, let's say 3 to 4 event listeners you have added, you will be using its scope and its variables, right? So if you look here, add event listeners, when you're doing, you have this function, right? You have the event, right? You have the variable. So these all things will take memory. This is scopes, everything will take memory. Even here you are using closures. The closure will also take its own memory. So every time whenever you use event listener, every component of it, every variable, every function of it will take memory, and that memory will be occupied even when you are not running the code, right? So that's why it is recommended that you should be removing event listeners, so that all of these functions, all of these variables, whatever you're using, will not be taking up the space. Okay, now if suppose there is no use of these variables, where does it go? If suppose we do not need count variable, if you do not need these functions, then where does it go? It goes to the garbage collection. Okay, so we have a garbage collection mode where all these unused data or unused variable or unused functions get stored, the same way how it happens in Java. In Java also, if you're creating an object and the object is not getting used, it gets transferred into a garbage collector, right? Same thing happens here. If something is not getting used, it will get inside garbage collector. Fine. So these are the two codes which I wanted to show you, and I hope you have understood this. Okay, now we are going to start our next things. We are going to understand about internally how your call stack or GC works. First of all, let me just close this because it will create a problem. I'm just going to remove the okay, fine. So now let's quickly understand and revise how this call stack works. Okay, and then I'm going to tell you something else. So do not worry about callback and all right now. Let's worry about how this JavaScript engine works. Okay, now understand that we have two things here, right? We have a call stack and we also have something else which is known as GC, right? So we have global execution context, correct? Now we know that if any program we are writing, what's gonna happen? So first of all, if I design something, so if I explain you what is it, the main component in JavaScript engine is this call stack. Okay, now remember, whatever you give inside this call stack, whatever, right, this will directly execute that code. Okay, so this gonna directly execute that code. Whatever code will go inside this particular call stack portion, this is gonna directly execute that code. No matter what you have written, if something is coming inside call stack, this is gonna directly execute that code. Okay, that is what is the work of call stack. Let me just comment these all things because I think it will create some problems. So I'm just going to write it in a comment manner. So call stack will execute whatever we will give him. Okay, if I'm giving any particular function, it's gonna execute that. First of all, in the call stack, what goes global execution context. What it does, it basically gives, or we can say assign, undefined values to all the global variables, and also it declares the functions. If any functions are there, it's gonna declare it inside global execution context. That's what it does. So in the call stack, first we'll have the global execution context, which will take the undefined values and will give it to the variables, and it will also take the functions and it's gonna take that, right? Now suppose later on, if after global execution context there is a function which has been called, right? If there is a function which has been called, let's say the function is a, so this function will be called, right? Now this function will come above global execution. That means in the call stack, a function will be pushed, and inside this a function, its local variable, its global variable, its different functions. If it is having nested functions, those functions, all these things gonna declare here. Okay, also it's gonna work its logic. If any logic is written, it's gonna work completely. Now obviously this a function will have its ending curly brackets, right? It will have its ending curly brackets. Once it will come inside its ending curly brackets, this all it's gonna vanish from here. Why it's gonna vanish from here? Because its logic has been done, its work has been completed. So now we do not need a function. So now this a function will get deleted from here. So what all task is happening inside a? All the local variables, global variables getting assigned, functions getting assigned, the logic is getting worked. You will see the output in the console, and once it comes to the curly bracket where the a function is getting ended, it will vanish from the call stack. Okay, so it's gonna vanish from the call stack. The same thing is again gonna happen for another function. Let's say b. Same thing will happen again. So b के लिए भी local variable, global variable, functions, all things will get declared. It's gonna work its logic, and once it comes to its ending curly brackets, again the b work is getting completed. It's gonna vanish, right? It's gonna vanish. After that, बचा क्या यहाँ पे? What is left? The left thing is global execution context, right? Now from this, whatever is required, it will take it. It will take all the other codes, right? If there's no function will come up in the call stack and it will directly work. And once this whole code is completed, the whole code is completed, this GC will also get removed from the call stack. That is what we know. We have done this in our previous sessions also. That is what we have understood, right? We have understood that if all the task is completed, if all the codes, all the functions are executed, now in the call stack there will be nothing. Okay, so in the call stack, first GC will come, and what GC will do we know already, and then all the functions which are called, that will come. When the called function works is getting completed, that called function will get removed from the call stack. Similarly, it will happen for all the functions, and once all the functions are finished, and then GC also will get removed from the call stack, and now the call stack is empty and you will get the output. That's how my call stack works, correct? Now if suppose that I have a, I have a set timeout, right? I have a set timeout and there's a 5-second delay, right? In the code. So let me just write one code and let me just show you how I'm going to explain this. So let's say I have this first code which is saying console.log begin. And then I'm writing here set timeout. And here I'm just going to tell function, and let's write here show. And let's type here print. Okay, so this is one of the set timeout which I've given. I will also give here, because I've given the function, I have to give here the millisecond. So let's say I'm giving here 5000 as the value, right? And now I'm going to print up here, let's say console.log completed. Now what's going to happen? So we know how our call stack is going to work, right? First we'll have our GC, right? So once we'll have our GC, what's going to happen? In the GC, we'll have all the functions and variables assigned. Right now we don't have any variable, we know that. So what's going to happen? Basically, the function which set timeout is there, that's gonna go here, and all the global objects it's gonna create, right? All the global objects it's gonna create, nothing else, the window thing, right? Now next what's gonna happen, we have console.log begin. So don't you think in the output, first of all begin will come? First of all begin will only come, right? Because we have that in the beginning, so begin will first come. Now we have set timeout function show, right? Now this show function, what's going to happen here is here show function will come, okay? But please understand that it's set timeout, right? And this is not a normal function. This is a callback function, right? Where there is a 5000 delay, right? Now how this is going to work? How this is gonna get stored in the call stack, because we want this to get printed, right? We want this to get printed, but this can't come inside can't come inside call stack. Why it can't come inside call stack? Because we are not calling show function. Anywhere are we calling call function, show function? We are not calling it, right? So no matter what, this show function is not gonna come here. Okay, so this is gonna wait. I don't know where it's gonna wait. After that, it's gonna print completed, right? We have printed begin, we have written completed, but what about this? Where is this going? What is happening to this? This is not gonna come to call stack. This is because I'm not calling show function. Then where is it going? Where is it residing? What is happening to it? Let's understand. So first of all, let me comment this code, okay? And let me explain you something else. Now, if we know when we write a JavaScript program, hi Adnan and hi YJ. Hello sir, lesson number 36 is missing in the playlist. Yes, lesson number 36 is missing in the playlist because it is in private. It will come back soon, but right now please do not watch lesson number 37 also, because lesson number 37 was a part of lesson number 36. So skip those, because those two videos are just a table based layout project, right? You can watch it later on also. You are not going to miss out on anything. So just skip L36 and L37 right now. Those videos gonna come back. I will tell you in the live sessions whenever it will come back, and then you can watch it. What is lexical scoping? Adnan, I'll really tell you that please go ahead and watch the Advanced JavaScript 1 part 1, which I took day before yesterday. Go ahead and watch that session, because there I've explained you what is lexical scoping, and you will be able to understand clearly what is that. Right now what we are going to do is we are going to understand how this program works, what is happening here. Now one second. Any doubt till now? Okay, now let's understand what is happening here. So we all know that whatever programs we are writing in JavaScript is running in the browser, right? And browser is having a lot of things which it does. Okay, browser have a lot of things which it does, and we need to understand what all things this particular browser does it for us. Okay, so what it does is it has a timer on its own. Okay, it has its local storage on its own. Okay, it has its web URL. You know, in browsers we can put up the web URL, so it is giving us that also. It has features of navigation, right? Whenever you open in a browser any application which shows map, right, like a Google map, so browser shows it to me, right? So it has the property of navigation. It has the property of Bluetooth, right? So it is having all these properties, right? We can use all of these things using a browser. We can use a timer, we can use it for storing something, we can search for something, we can navigate, and we can also use Bluetooth. Now all these things are nothing but, if I want to use all these things, we have to use web APIs. Okay, now what is web APIs? If you want to use the browser things, if you want to use the browser's properties, we have to use web APIs. Now what is that? Now you will be shocked to understand that set timeout, console.log, document.write, these all things are not a JavaScript thing. These all things are given by browser itself. Okay, so browser has all those things. When you talk about timer feature, set timeout is the feature which a browser gives me, and this is an API. So we use this API. Whenever I have written this particular code here, whenever I'm writing this code here, I'm not writing a JavaScript code. I'm not writing or using a JavaScript code. I am using a browser API. Okay, this is one of the browser API which is used as a timer. The same like this, we have different APIs. We have something called as DOM APIs. Now this is also document object model. So all those document.write, document.get in by ID, whenever you're writing that, you're not using a JavaScript code. Basically you are using browser's API. So that is inside DOM API. We have also something called as fetch, right? We have also called as something local storage. We have something called as console. Again, console.log, whatever you use, console.log and those statements, right, which is having console, that is also not a JavaScript code. This console is an API of browser which we use in our JavaScript code. And also location is one of the API which is used for navigation and all, right? So these all are browser APIs which will be used once you write and use this in our JavaScript code. So whenever you use set timeout, don't say that you are using a JavaScript code here. You are using this set timeout function of JavaScript, which is used as a browser API. Okay, so it is a browser API. These all are browser's API. Now, if I have to use set timeout function, if I have to bring out timer or some timer in my code, if I want the code to work after 5 seconds or after 10 seconds, a timer I want to introduce in my code, I have to use the browser API set timeout. Okay, if I have to use document.get by ID, right, then I have to use DOM API. So whenever you're using these sentences, it goes through the API in the browser, and that's why in the browser you will be able to see all those changes, right? So till now, whatever codes we have written, whenever we have used document dot something, console dot something, set timeout function, or any local storage if you are storing, those all storage also happens inside the browser itself. Everything is happening because of the browser APIs, right? So here also, if I'm writing set timeout function, this is also using a browser API, and that's why it is working. Okay. Now let's again come back to this. Let's again come back to this code. Now, if we run this code, what is happening? First, GC is getting inserted in the call stack, getting pushed in the call stack, and after that, something has to be pushed, and it is not set timeout, because set timeout comes with an API, right, which is your set timeout API, and I'm not calling the show function, so it's not going to come inside call stack. Then call stack is not gonna wait for it. Call stack is not gonna wait for it. So what will happen here is call stack it's gonna go to the next command, which is completed. So it's gonna print completed. Where this code will go? This code will be registering inside a API container. So what is this? The registering callback. Because this is a callback, this is the callback, right? It is calling the same, its own function again, right? I am not calling show. Set timeout is calling the function by itself. So it's an callback, right? I have told you that when I was explaining callback, I told you that set timeout is a very good example of a callback function, because after 5 seconds, it knows what he has to do. It has to call his function in his own. So this is a very good example of callback, correct? So what this will happen, this is gonna get registered inside an API container. What is API container? This is an API container. So inside API container, what all things are there? All these set timeout, DOM API, fetch, local storage, console, location, all these things are there. And do you know what is this browser API? What is this API container? This is basically the window object. Remember the window object which I told you? In the previous session, I did tell you that the very first thing which is gonna get created inside a JavaScript engine will be window object, inside which all the predefined things are there, correct? So if I show you here also, if I go ahead and inspect, if I just write here window, these all things are here. If I open this, these all things are here. All the predefined functions, all the variables predefined, all the event listeners, all of these things are predefined here in the object. And here itself, my all APIs are also there, right? So all the APIs are inside the window object, and that is having the set timeout, DOM API, fetch, local storage, console. Fine. And this callback is also gonna to get registered inside this API container. Okay, let's revise till now whatever we have studied. So what all things we have studied? We have studied about call stack. We have seen that whatever we put inside call stack, it's gonna directly execute it. So we have to give only those things to call stack which call stack can execute. We have understood this first thing. Second thing which we have understood is that inside call stack, the very first thing which will go is GC, and after that, whatever function will get called, that's gonna get pushed. Okay, and once it is pushed, once the function work is over, it's gonna pop out. That's what we have learned till now, right? Also, what we have learned is that if you have a browser, the browser is having a lot of work, right? It is having a timer on its own. It is having a local storage memory. It is having a web URL where you can put HTTPS and you can request any page. It is having a navigation also where you can use Google Map and it will indicate you where you are or which location you want to go, all of those things. Bluetooth connectivity is also there using browser. All of these features are there inside browser. Let me just write here features, right? And all of these features you can use in a JavaScript program by using its API. So if you want to use a timer inside a browser, you have to use set timeout API, which is a browser API, not a JavaScript API or a JavaScript code. It's a browser API. Again, DOM API, it's document object model, console, fetch, local storage, location, and there are a lot of things which is there. And in all these things are inside a API container, which is inside window object. Okay, now if I write a code, then what's gonna happen? This console log.begin, it's gonna get printed because inside GC, it will know that user is using console. It will go to the console API, it will print begin. That is the output which I'm getting here. I'll just write here, this is the output which I'm getting here. Right? So I'm getting begin first, and then this thing is an API, right? So set timeout function will go to the set timeout API of browser, and because it's a callback function, this can't get stored or pushed in the call stack. कॉल स्टैक में सिर्फ वही चीज जाएगा जिसको हम लोग कॉल करते हैं, जिस फंक्शन को हम लोग कॉल करते हैं. So the function which is getting called, only those things will go inside call stack. But this is not, I'm not calling it, right? This is not a calling function. I'm not calling this. This is set time out function which is using set time out API. So it will register a callback inside an API container. Let's say the callback name is callback. The callback name is callback. Okay. Now, अब कॉल स्टैक वेट नहीं करता किसी का. कॉल स्टैक वेट्स फॉर नन, राइट? व्हेन कॉल स्टैक वेट्स फॉर नन, देन व्हाट्स गोना हैपन, this particular line will get executed. So completed is getting executed. Fine. So completed is getting executed, and we are getting in the output also. Now GC is there, right? Task हो गया है, program भी complete हो चुका है, right? We have printed this begin, we have printed this completed, which was the last code. So now GC will also get removed from here. GC will also get removed from the call stack. Now inside the call stack, do we have anything? Listen to me carefully. Call stack के अंदर कुछ भी है? Call stack के अंदर कुछ नहीं है. That means if inside call stack there's nothing, it's not gonna execute anything, and we are not going to get any code here, right? We are not going to get any code here, but still we are missing out this one, correct? Which is registered callback inside API container, right? We need to run this code. So we need to bring this callback inside this call stack. Anyhow, we need to do this. We need to bring this callback inside this call stack. Now, how to do that? Here comes something else. So we have a callback queue. Okay. Now, what is this callback queue? This callback queue is like a container in which all the callbacks will be stored, like a train bogies, or like a like a queue. So one callback, second callback, third callback, fourth callback, all these callbacks will be stored in a queue, in this callback queue container. Okay. So in this container, this callback thing, after 5 seconds, that means after this set timeout function will get completed, after 5 seconds, this callback queue is gonna come here. Fine. So callback is now here in this callback queue. Now from this callback queue, there is something called as event loop. Now what is this event loop? This event loop is just a functionality which does two tasks. First thing, it monitors whether the call stack is empty or not. This is the first task which a event loop will do. The second task what event loop will do is it will check if anything is there in the callback queue. Okay. So two things this event loop will do, and I have told you that. Now let's understand why is it needed. So event loop will check or will monitor whether the call stack is empty or not, right? So right now my call stack is empty. So event loop will say, okay, right now your call stack is empty. Now I have to do my second task. What is the second task? It will check if anything is there in the callback queue. So in the callback queue, I have one callback, right? So what it's gonna do is, the third task, it will push this callback inside the call stack. So if anybody is asking you that if you have any callback, then it can't directly go to the call stack, then who is gonna help in that? So to bring the callback in the call stack, to bring any kind of callback, not only set timeout, but any kind of callback, if you want to bring it back to the call stack, who will help? Event loop will help. Okay. again I'm repeating from the portion where I left. Okay, so these all things I'm going to repeat. So if you have any callbacks in your program, this callback can't directly go inside the call stack, right? Because these callbacks are not the functions which we are calling as a user. We are not calling it. These callbacks are callbacks which is getting called automatically, right, after 5 seconds. So we need to wait for 5 seconds, correct? Now, meanwhile, when it is getting completed 5 seconds, we are going to register this callback inside an API container, right, which is here. And here this will be named as callback. Let's say callback 1. Let's say callback 1 because there will be multiple callbacks, right? It can happen that we will have 2-3 timeouts. So it will create 2-3 callbacks. So we'll have first callback here. So in my container, in my API container, I have registered one callback, which is callback 1, right? Now, meanwhile, when 5 seconds is getting completed, this code will complete its work. And once this code has completed its work, GC will go from here. Earlier GC was there. Now GC will also get removed. Once this GC is getting removed, now my call stack is empty. So we have the code which is left right now. We have not completed the code. What we need to now do is we need to find out a method so that this callback 1 is getting called inside the call stack. So how do we do that? Then comes callback queue. So in the callback queue, all the callbacks will be stored here in a queue so that one by one event loop can check and can push it up in the call stack. So event loop will do 3 things. First, it monitors whether the call stack is empty or not. Right now call stack is empty. Second, it will check if anything is there in the callback queue. So if something is there in the callback queue, then it's gonna take it and it's gonna push it in the call stack. Once callback comes here in the call stack, what's gonna happen? It's gonna print. So after completed, we are going to get print. This is how this whole program is gonna work. Okay. Let me know if you have any doubts in this. Okay. Any doubts still here? This is where event loops comes into picture. This is where callback queue comes into picture. Okay. So what we have understood till now, we have understood that browsers बहुत सारा काम कर सकता है, right? और उन browsers को वो सारे काम करने के लिए अगर हमको उनका यूज़ चाहिए, अगर हमको उन सारे काम का यूज़ चाहिए तो हमें एक जावास्क्रिप्ट कोड लिखना पड़ेगा. और जावास्क्रिप्ट कोड लिखने से काम नहीं चलेगा, हमें उनका API यूज़ करना पड़ेगा. उनका API यूज़ करके हम ब्राउज़र्स के सारे फीचर्स को यूज़ कर सकते हैं. ब्राउज़र्स के सारे फीचर्स ये सारे हैं और भी बहुत सारे फीचर्स हैं. उन सारे के कुछ ना कुछ APIs होते हैं जो यहाँ पे लिखे हुए हैं. वो सारे ब्राउज़र्स के API विंडो ऑब्जेक्ट के अंदर होती हैं, राइट. नाउ अगर मैं कोई कोड लिख रहा हूँ तो उसमें ऑब्वियसली कॉल स्टैक है, राइट. कॉल स्टैक में जो भी चीज़ हम लोग डालेंगे वो हमेशा एग्जीक्यूट हो जाएगा, राइट. सो कॉल स्टैक के अंदर क्या क्या चीज़ जा सकता है? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल GC जाता है, जो GC हमेशा ग्लोबल वेरिएबल्स को डिक्लेयर करता है और अनडिफाइंड वैल्यूज़ देता है और फंक्शंस को कॉल करता है. अगर हम किसी फंक्शन को कॉल कर रहे हैं तो वो कॉलिंग फंक्शन भी कॉल स्टैक में जाके पुट हो जाएगा. जब तक वो कॉलिंग फंक्शन कंप्लीट नहीं होता है तब तक वो कोड रन होते रहेगा, ठीक है. जैसे ही कोड कंप्लीट होगा वो फंक्शन वहाँ से हट जाएगा. आफ्टर दैट न्यू फंक्शन विल कम, जो नया फंक्शन मैंने कॉल किया वो जाएगा और उसके बाद फिर वो फंक्शन काम करना चालू होगा. जैसे ही वो फंक्शन काम करना खत्म हो जाएगा तो वो फंक्शन भी वहाँ से चले जाएगा, पूरा कोड कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, फिर GC भी वहाँ से हट जाएगा. दैट्स अ नॉर्मल कोडिंग हाउ इट हैपेंस. बट अगर आपके पास ऐसा कोड है जहाँ पे आप कुछ भी फंक्शन कॉल नहीं कर रहे हो और आपके पास एक कॉल बैक फंक्शन है, तब क्या होगा? तब बेसिकली क्या होगा कि फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल कंसोल वाला कंसोल API लेके आपको प्रिंट कर देगा बिगिन. उसके बाद ये कॉल बैक जो है वो वेट करेगा. सो कॉल बैक फंक्शन वेट करेगा कहाँ पे? हम लोग उसको रजिस्टर कर देंगे API कंटेनर के अंदर और API कंटेनर के अंदर कॉल बैक 1 करके एक कुछ बन जाएगा, राइट. और वो वहीं पे स्टोर रहेगा 5 सेकंड्स के लिए, क्योंकि हमने वहाँ पे 5 सेकंड्स का टाइम आउट दिया है, करेक्ट. तब तक हमारा कॉल स्टैक वेट तो करेगा नहीं, तब तक हमारा कॉल स्टैक इस पर्टिकुलर लाइन को भी प्रिंट कर देगा, ठीक है. अब उसके बाद जीसी जो है वहाँ से हट जाएगा, क्योंकि पूरा कोड कंप्लीट हो गया तो जीसी वहाँ से हट जाएगा, राइट। अब वंस जीसी अगर वहाँ से हट गया है तो कॉलबैक क्यू के अंदर जितने भी कॉलबैक्स हैं, इवेंट लूप का काम है कि उन कॉलबैक्स को पुश करना कॉल स्टैक में। तो इवेंट लूप पहले तो चेक करेगा कि कॉल स्टैक के अंदर कुछ है कि नहीं। अगर कुछ नहीं है तो उसको एक आइडिया मिल जाएगा कि अब मैं अपने कॉल बैक क्यू में जाके चेक कर सकता हूँ कि कॉल बैक क्यू में कुछ है या नहीं। अगर कॉल बैक क्यू में कुछ कॉल बैक्स हैं तो उसको मैं पुश कर दूंगा कॉल स्टैक में, ठीक। तो अभी यहाँ पे कॉल बैक 1 का क्यू था तो ये चला जाएगा कॉल स्टैक में, और फिर ये चीज़ जो ये प्रिंट कर रहा है वो यहाँ पे प्रिंट हो जाएगा। तो एक काम करते हैं, सबसे पहले एक नॉर्मल प्रोग्राम लिखते हैं और उसको रन करते हैं। उसको पहले कंसोल में इंटरनली देखते हैं वहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, और उसके बाद एक ये वाला प्रोग्राम रन करेंगे, ठीक है। तो पहले नॉर्मल प्रोग्राम रन करते हैं। नॉर्मल प्रोग्राम में हम लोग बस इतना ही लिखेंगे, एक फंक्शन बनाएंगे और इन द फंक्शन आई विल जस्ट राइट console.log a and I'm just going to call this. Now understand, I'm calling, right? So call stack में ये a function जाएगा, right? Call stack में ये a function जाएगा, then console.log here, let's say I'm just putting here completed. एक और काम करते हैं, ये वाला चीज ऊपर भी डालते हैं, राइट। राइट नाउ आई एम नॉट यूजिंग एनी कॉल बैक, आई एम जस्ट राइटिंग अ नॉर्मल सिंपल कोड, ठीक है। फिर से अंडरस्टैंड करना है, अगर कंफ्यूजन हुआ है तो आप फिर से यहाँ पे समझ जाओ क्या हो रहा है। तो पहले मैंने console.log begin लिखा, फंक्शन ए लिखा, ए को कॉल किया और console.log completed लिखा, राइट। हाय पवन, एग्जीक्यूशन कॉन्टेक्स्ट एग्जीक्यूशन स्टैक बता रहे हो क्या? नो पवन, आई एम ट्राइंग टू एक्सप्लेन इवेंट लूप एंड कॉल बैक क्यू, ओके। बट इन इवेंट लूप and callback queue we need to understand execution context also. So it's not the repeated session. To understand event loop you have to understand how execution context works. That's what I'm explaining. So if I save this and if I go back to my code, ठीक है, अगर ब्राउजर में देखें तो आपको यहाँ पे बिगन ए और कंप्लीट दिख रहा है, राइट। नॉर्मल वर्क कर रहा है, बिगन ए और कंप्लीटेड। अब अगर कॉल स्टैक पे देखें तो हमारा कॉल स्टैक कैसे वर्क करना चाहिए, हाउ द कॉल स्टैक शुड वर्क। कॉल स्टैक शुड वर्क इन अ नॉर्मल वे। कॉल स्टैक में फर्स्ट क्या आएगा, जीसी आएगा। जीसी में सबसे पहले बिगन प्रिंट हो जाएगा जीसी के चलते। उसके बाद ए फंक्शन कॉल हो रहा है तो जीसी के ऊपर ए आएगा, जीसी के ऊपर ए पुश होगा, ए अपना काम करेगा, ए विल वर्क एज इट इज, सो इट विल प्रिंट ए। देन ए का काम खत्म, so a will get removed, still gc is there, so it's gonna print completed, and that's how my whole code is gonna work. So let's check out. It will go to sources, let's place up the debugger here, and let's run it. So here you can see in the call stack we have the gc which is anonymous, and all the things will be declared here that I'm not going to show you. You can see here a का function बन गया है and कोई variable नहीं है तो this is not gonna do anything. But in the call stack we have the gc right now, correct? So now if I run this, console.log में begin print हो चुका है, okay? If you look at the console, if I go to console, you can see here begin is printed already. फिर से जाते हैं sources पे, और now you can see here, if I see right now the debugger is in the calling. So if I call this, now is it inside a function. Can you see in the call stack? It's inside a function. A function में क्या हो रहा है? A function is calling console.log a. So if I again load this, you can see still a is there. Why? Because अभी curly bracket खत्म नहीं हुआ है. Curly bracket of a function is not finished yet. Once I click on this, a function will be removed from the call stack. Can you see? From the call stack, a function is removed. Right? So, क्योंकि a function का काम हो गया. And if you look at the console, I would have got a here. Correct? Now let's come back. अभी का बाकी रह गया लास्ट वाला लाइन, console.log completed, right? a function remove हो चुका है. अगर इसको भी कर देंगे तो कॉल स्टैक से gc भी हट गया, कॉल स्टैक से gc भी हट गया, right? This is how a normal program works when using a normal function and a normal variable, right? This is how a program works. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the program. So here I'm going to comment this. This was the normal program. I'm going to remove this. And now I'm going to uncomment this one. Fine. So this time I have a callback. I have not a normal function. I have a callback. So इसमें क्या होगा, पहले GC आएगा कॉल स्टैक में, उसके बाद ये बिगिन प्रिंट हो जाएगा. आफ्टर दैट इट कैनॉट टेक दिस शो फंक्शन बिकॉज आई एम नॉट कॉलिंग इट, सो इट्स गोना डू दीज ऑल थिंग्स. तो इस पर्टिकुलर कोड के लिए ये सारी चीज़ें होंगी. इंटरनली क्या होगा, उसका एक हम लोग रजिस्टर करेंगे कॉल बैक इन द नेम ऑफ कॉल बैक 1, और फिर वो कॉल बैक क्यू में चला जाएगा आफ्टर 5 सेकेंड्स. आफ्टर 5 सेकेंड्स दिस गोना हैपन आफ्टर 5 सेकेंड्स, क्योंकि उतना डिले है. Right? So after 5 seconds, it's going to have the callback, and event loop will check 3 things. First of all, whether call stack is empty or not, क्योंकि GC भी वहां से हट जाएगा because all the code will get completed, right? So let's check out this. Let's save this. Let's go back. And let's go to inspect. Let's go to sources. And let's put up the debuggers. Here also. Okay. And let's save this. So now you can see in the call stack we have anonymous. ठीक है, anonymous के अंदर global scope है. global के अंदर हमारे पास कुछ भी function अभी नहीं रहेगा क्योंकि set timeout दिया हुआ है because we are using an API. So right now only GC is there right now. ठीक है. Now let's go to the next line. If I'm going to the next line, it is going to set timeout, but have a look in console. Begin print हो चुका है. Begin is printed, right? Let's come to sources and you can see still GC is there. Correct? If I run this again, have a look. Set timeout को skip कर दिया इसने. Set timeout को इसने skip कर दिया directly, right? Why it has skipped set timeout? Because it understood that set timeout is a callback and it will register one callback inside a callback queue. ठीक है? And now after 5 seconds, inside callback queue, callback register हो जाएगा and event loop will wait till this call stack will become empty. Till this call stack will become empty. अभी empty नहीं है, तो event loop will not call the callback right now. Once this will become empty, then event loop will go to callback queue. It will take that callback and will push it inside the call stack. So let's load this. And now if I go back to console, you can see completed, right? Completed is written here. ठीक है, क्योंकि console.log हो गया. अभी 5 सेकेंड कंप्लीट हो चुका है, राइट? सो नाउ मेरा जो कॉल स्टैक है उसमें now you can see that there is a show function. Who is doing this? Event loop is doing it. Event loop is bringing this up in the call stack and now it's getting executed. So after 5 seconds, you are going to get print here. Okay. Let me run this again so that you can see the output here. First of all, let me remove this debuggers. And let's save this. So you can see began and completed, and then after 5 seconds, your print is gonna come. Okay, fine. So this is how your call stack, your event loop, and your callback queue works. I hope you don't have any doubts. Please do let me know if you have any doubts still here. If not, then we are going to move into the next part. This is what is event loop. So अगर आपको explanation देना है what is event loop, you can tell these 3 things. What an event loop does, what a callback queue is. You can tell these all things. It's all written here, okay? Let me know if you have any doubts. Otherwise, we'll move to the next code. So event loop does 2 things, 3 things. Basically, it monitors the call stack, it monitors the callback queue, and it also push the callback thing to the call stack. Fine. Now let's do one thing more. Set timeout is one of the function which we have used, which will take the JavaScript API, right? The browser API, right? So what if I'm not using a set timeout, but instead I will use something else, okay? So what I'm going to do here is, let's say document dot get element by ID, click dot add event listener, click, and inside this I'm going to put up function. Let's say I'm going to put up a function sam, and here I'm going to put up console.log. Let's say it is saying print again. Okay, so now I've not written anything such as set timeout, but I've written add event listener, right? Now there's no timing criteria. I'm not using a timer here. Now I'm using DOM API. How come I got to know that I'm using, one second, I can't see a screen, right? You can't see my screen, right? Now you can see. I hope you can see my screen now. So here you can see I'm not using any set timeout now. So set timeout API is not getting used. I'm using DOM API, which is document.getIn by ID. Okay. I already have one click ID here, and that's what I'm using here. So let's save this. And obviously what's going to happen? Same thing is going to happen because I'm not calling anything. As you can see, I'm not calling any function. I am just writing one document.getIn by ID, click dot add event listener, click function samp console.log print. That means once anybody will click that button, the click me button, once anybody will click that, an event listener will get occurred and it will print in the console, right? So right now in the browser, what is happening? Let's see. Please keep this thing in mind that I'm not calling any function. That means in the call stack, first of all, GC is gonna come and nothing is gonna come. Only GC is gonna come. First GC will आएगा, GC अपना काम करेगा. क्या काम करेगा? पहले तो ये begin print करेगा, then it's gonna print completed. ओके, इसको स्किप कर देगा. क्यों? क्योंकि फंक्शन कॉल हो नहीं रहा है. आई एम नॉट कॉलिंग दिस फंक्शन, राइट? आई एम नॉट कॉलिंग दिस फंक्शन samp anywhere, right? So what will happen? This will get stored and registered a callback. ठीक है? तो लेट्स से कॉलबैक टू रजिस्टर हो जाएगा एपीआई के अंदर, और इसमें टाइमर लगा नहीं है तो कॉलबैक क्यू में आ जाएगा. सो इनसाइड callback 2 will come, and now event loop will wait till this GC is getting removed from the call stack. So once this GC will get removed from the call stack, that means पूरा कोड कंप्लीट हो चुका है. आफ्टर दैट इट्स गोना गो एंड सर्च फॉर कॉलबैक क्यू, कि कॉलबैक क्यू के अंदर कुछ है या नहीं. सो यस, वी हैव कॉलबैक 2 एंड हियर इट्स गोना कॉल callback 2. So this is gonna happen with using event loop. So event loop will do this, and now it's gonna see that यहाँ पे क्या करना है. Again, this print will only get printed when you click the button, otherwise it will not. So understand the difference between set timeout and this part also. ठीक है? So जब तक कोई क्लिक नहीं करेगा, till the time if anybody is not clicking on any particular button, right, till then this thing will be inside the callback queue itself. Once a person will click on that click, event loop will fastly take this callback to and put it inside the call stack, and वो चीज़ execute हो जाएगा और यहाँ पे print हो जाएगा. ठीक है, तो इसको करके देखते हैं. Let's try it out in the sources itself, and let's try to see internally क्या हो रहा है. So if I show you the output, you can see begin and completed has come already. Begin और completed डायरेक्टली यहाँ पे प्रिंट हो चुका है, बिकॉज GC किसी का वेट नहीं करता, कॉलस्टैक किसी का वेट नहीं करता. कॉलस्टैक इज नॉट वेटिंग फॉर एनीबडी, इट इज डूइंग इट्स टास्क. इवेंट लिसनर के अंदर हमने कुछ भी कॉल नहीं किया था, दैट्स वाई दैट इज इनसाइड द कंटेनर. इट इज रजिस्टरिंग अ कॉल बैक. it will get inside the callback queue, and once if anybody will click on this button, then that callback queue will be getting inside the call stack in with the help of event loop, and that's when you're going to get print. ठीक है, let's do it slowly and let's check out what is happening in the debugger part also. Fine, so let's run this. So first of all, if you see call stack में gc है, gc के अंदर I am just printing begin. So if I go into the next line in the console, begin will get printed. Next, sources, it's gonna come inside the add event listener. Nothing gonna happen because I have not called the function. So it's gonna skip this part and going to completed. Inside this, it's gonna complete this. So once I click on the debugger, you can find out in the console that it will print completed also. Okay. Now I'm coming back to sources, and now you can see that call stack के अंदर कुछ नहीं है, right? So it has finished. The work has finished. Call stack is not having anything. That means event loop is now knowing that call stack के अंदर कुछ नहीं है. He is just waiting for the user to do something. So if I click here, now you can see that SAM function has been called here, right? So who has done this? Event loop has done it. Event loop has seen and observed that, okay, now is the time. I think the call stack is empty. I'm just gonna wait for the user to click the button. Once the user will click the button, I'll throw that callback inside the call stack, and it's gonna print inside the console. ठीक है, I hope there is no doubt in this. I hope no problem in this part. I hope you have understood what is callback queue, what is event loop clearly. Let's come back to the code. Any doubts, please do let me know. Is this live? Yes, this is live. If you have any questions, you can ask. Dhruv, I have not understand what you're asking. They should be full screen, not 60/40 or make 80/20. I'm not understanding what is that, so please explain. Any doubts till now, guys? If any doubts, please do let me know. Otherwise, we'll move to a different concept. Okay, so let me explain you one more thing. Whatever is written here, right? Whatever I explained you till now, what this all things, right? From the call stack, from the GC, from the callback queue, from the event loop, from the browser features and the window object browser APIs, all of these things work only because of one thing, okay? And that is nothing but your JS engine. If JS engine is not there, then it is not having any of these things, okay? That means JS engine एक कंटेनर है, उसके अंदर हमारे पास ये सारी चीजें हैं, call stack, GC and all of these things are inside JS engine itself. ये JS engine किसके अंदर है? So JS engine is inside the browser. Okay, so inside the browser we have JS engine. Inside the JS engine we have all these different things, calls like event loop and callback queue, browser का सारा features, उसका सारा API, सब कुछ इसके अंदर है. So please understand, whatever browser you are using, all the browsers will have JS engine. If any browser is not having any JS engine, then any of the website will not open in that browser. Okay, because of JS engine, these all things are there. That is why the JavaScript code is running. अगर यही नहीं होगा तो JS engine का क्या फायदा? अगर JS engine नहीं होगा तो browser का क्या फायदा? Okay, so understand this, and also understand that every browser is having a JS engine. Okay, not only the browsers, many of the different machines also have different JS engines, and if JS engine is there, then only your JavaScript programming will work for that machine. Okay, I'm talking about any machine like any robot or something, right? It can be a refrigerator, it can be anything. Okay, so if that particular machine is having a JS engine, it will be having all of these things as well, and that's where the JavaScript program will start working. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay, fine. Now what we are going to understand is we have understood callback queue, right? So there is something else also. Now what is that? That is nothing but called as micro task queue. Okay, now what is this? Now what is this micro task queue? We know about callback queue, but what is this micro task queue? So let's understand that. Now इसको समझने से पहले एग्जांपल देखेंगे. Before understanding microtask queue, let's do an example and let's try to understand. So we have used set timeout, we have used DOM API, we have seen these both things. Let's try it out with fetch. Fetch works differently, so let's try out how fetch works. So here I'm just going to remove it. The code will be same. I'll just take it above and print it here. Here I'm going to type down the code for our set timeout, and I'm just going to say here function, and let's say this is samp. One second, I think I did something wrong. Right, again this is a callback, so whatever I'm writing here, it's gonna go inside the callback. It's gonna register a callback inside the API container, that I know, correct? So I'm gonna just print here print. Fine. The next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to use fetch. Now understand what is fetch. Fetch is basically to fetch something. If it is getting fetched, then it should do something. Okay, and fetch and promise is what works simultaneously. So let me just explain you. I have not explained you what is promise, so don't worry if you're not understanding what is happening. So I'm going to just write here HTTPS, and let's say I'm just saying here api.youtube.com dot then function samp1 and inside this I'm going to print something. Okay, now what is happening? So I have two things now. I have one set timeout as an API, which will obviously go to the API and create a callback. And I have one more thing, which is fetch. So this will also take an API, which is fetch API of a browser. And again, I'm not calling any samp1 here. So it's gonna again go to the callback queue, right? So let's understand what happens here. Now, understand that this program, if you're not understanding what is this is a promise. What is a promise? Promise in JavaScript is something which you promise to the code, and if it happens, then it should do something. It's just simply like if and then. If this is correct, then it's gonna happen. Otherwise, it's not gonna happen. That's what is if and then, if and else. So same thing is here. Fetch this. What is this? This is, I'm just fetching the API of YouTube web page. Okay. If this is getting fetched, then you need to print 1. I can write here else also, but I'm not writing it here because I'm just going to take an example. In the next session, I am going to tell you what is promises. So don't worry about that. But right now I'm just trying to explain you one code, how fetch works. If it's gonna get success in fetching YouTube ka API, then it's gonna print 1. That is the program. What is it saying to me? Fine. So I have two things such like that, correct? So what do you think what's going to happen? What's going to happen here? Okay, one second. I think I've missed out here something. Right? I missed out the time. So what's going to happen here? Basically, you will say that it will create 2 callbacks, right? You will say that callback 1 and callback 2. That is how it's going to create. And in the callback queue, these 2 queues will come here, right? One will come callback 1 and callback 2, right? That is what's going to happen. And then event loop, what it will do, it will check whether call stack is empty or not. If it is not, then it will first callback 1 and it will print first print. and then it's gonna go to call callback to, it's gonna print 1. So your output will be begin, completed, print, and then print 1. That's what your answer will be, right? But it's not the case how it's gonna work. So in fetch, things work differently, and how these things will work, let me tell you about that. So basically what's gonna happen here is, when see, first of all, you need to understand that this set timeout is having 5 seconds. Okay, so we need to make sure that this goes for 5 seconds, right? But are we having any timeout for this? Do we have any timeout for this? No, right? So once it comes inside the API container, it's gonna directly get inside the queue also, right? And also before callback 1, because callback 1 is gonna take some time. It's gonna take 5 seconds to come, right? So that means, can we say it's gonna have like this? So first callback 2 will come and then callback 1. Callback 2 is for this function, fetch 1, and callback 1 is for this one. This we have understood. It's very simple, right? Set timeout is having 5 seconds limit. So it's gonna wait for some time. It's gonna hold its time. So callback 1 is gonna hold, but callback 2 will do its work. It's gonna come to the callback queue, right? Now understand, whenever you're using fetch, right, it does not come inside callback queue. It comes inside micro task queue. Okay. Now, what is this micro task queue? Please understand what is this micro task queue. So I'm just going to write it here. Micro task queue is also like a callback queue, but where callback queue is only taking the callbacks, micro task queue will take all the callback function which shows promises. So micro task queue will take all the callback functions which shows promises. All those callback functions will go inside micro task queue. Okay. This is first thing. Second thing, it's gonna also take mutation observer. Okay. Now mutation observer is also something like promises. I'm going to discuss this in my advanced session part 4. Okay, not right now. So promises and mutation observer is something the same. Promises is something which you promise to the code, and if it happens, then you are giving some command to do. If it doesn't happen, then you are giving some other command to do. Same thing happens to mutation observers. If it's keep on checking whether there is some mutation on the document object model tree or not. If there is some changes in the document object model tree, then it's gonna print something else. If there is no changes, it's gonna print something else. So both the work is same, but there is one difference. Promises can be work in any of the thing. Mutation observer will work only on DOM trees, document object model trees. And do not worry if you're not understand this right now. Just understand that micro task queue will have all the callback functions which show promises and mutation observers, but callback queue will have all the normal callbacks. Callback queues will take all the callback functions, like all the normal callback functions. Okay, except promises and mutation observer. Except these two, callback queue will take all the callbacks. So here in this case, what's going to happen? Callback 2, which is there in the inside API container, will come inside micro task queue, and callback 1 will come inside callback queue. Okay. One more thing, that micro task queue will always have the highest priority. Why it will have the highest priority? Reason is very simple. Reason is very simple. Have a look. If all the set timeout function will go here in the callback queue, so it's gonna wait for some delay. It's gonna wait for some time. Whereas promises and mutation observer is not having any timing delay. So it's gonna work fast, right? So it's gonna come fast. So priority will be given to micro task queue. Priority will not be given to callback, because any which ways in the callback it's gonna take time, how much milliseconds you have given. Okay, now understand what will be the output of this question. So first of all, what's gonna happen, it's gonna print begin. Second of all, what's gonna happen, it's gonna skip this, it's gonna skip this also, and it's gonna print completed. So it'll print begin, it'll print completed, and then after that it's gonna print one. Why? Because first priority is given to micro task queue. So whatever is there inside micro task queue will be pushed with the help of event loop to the call stack. So print one will be printed first, and then after some seconds print will be printed. Okay, let's again start the procedure and let's understand. So we have the call stack. I'll put down all the things here. तो कॉल स्टैक में पहले जीसी आया, जीसी के अंदर सारे ग्लोबल वेरिएबल्स जो भी डिक्लेयर करना था वो सारे डिक्लेयर हो गए. कोई भी कॉल फंक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, ये स्किप हो जाएगा, ये स्किप हो जाएगा, बिगिन और कंप्लीटेड प्रिंट हो जाएगा. जीसी यहाँ से हट जाएगा. जीसी हटने के बाद इवेंट लूप देखेगा कि कॉल स्टैक के अंदर कुछ नहीं है, देयर इज नथिंग इनसाइड द कॉल स्टैक. देन व्हाट्स गोना डू, इट्स गोना चेक योर माइक्रो टास्क क्यू कि माइक्रो टास्क क्यू के अंदर कुछ है या नहीं. अगर माइक्रो टास्क क्यू के अंदर इफ देयर इज समथिंग, देन इट्स गोना push that inside call stack, right? So it's gonna push callback 2, and then callback 2 का काम होगा, it's gonna complete all this, it's gonna print 1, and then after that event loop will check whether there is something in callback queue or not. If there is something in callback queue, it's gonna push up inside call stack, and then that's gonna complete, और फिर हम लोग को आउटपुट आ जाएगा, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट इज माइक्रो टास्क क्यू. अंडरस्टैंड, माइक्रो टास्क क्यू विल हैव द हाईएस्ट प्रायोरिटी, मोर प्रायोरिटी देन कॉल बैक क्यू. सो फर्स्ट माइक्रो टास्क क्यू के अंदर जो चीज़ है वो एग्जीक्यूट होगा, एंड लेटर ऑन कॉल बैक क्यू के अंदर जो चीज़ है वो एग्जीक्यूट होगा. ऑल्सो माइक्रो टास्क क्यू विल हैव ऑल द कॉल बैक फंक्शंस विच शोज promises, mutation observers. All other kind of callback functions will come inside callback queue. Let's try to find out what is the answer of this in the console. So if I go back, if I just go to inspect in the console, there is some code problem in the fetch https dot then function samp1 console.log print1. ओके, फैच के अंदर कुछ टाइप एरर है. Okay, basically the YouTube API is not getting resolved, मतलब वो API नहीं ले पा रहा है, that's why it's giving error. Let's skip this part and let's save this. Let's go back to our, so after 5 seconds we are getting this. Okay, let's go back to our sources. This error is coming because I'm getting the YouTube API that I've just written random code. It's not gonna give you anything. Okay, right now here I'm going to put up all the debuggers and we'll try to see what is happening inside the code. तो कंसोल में आपको समझ में आ ही गया होगा कि how it is giving me the output. It is giving me begin, completed, and then print 1 and then print, right? Print 1 वाला काम नहीं कर रहा है because fetch the code is wrong, that's why. So let's try it out here and let's try to see what is happening in the call stack. So first of call stack में GC है, GC के अंदर सारे global values आ गए हैं, and then it's gonna go to set timeout, but set timeout को skip कर देगा, fetch को भी skip कर देगा. It's gonna go to console.log completed, and completed when I'll go back it's gonna take out that. So you can see here in the console you are getting began and completed. And after that fetch के अंदर आया, but fetch के अंदर कुछ errors आ गई, तो fetch को वो कुछ नहीं किया. fetch में error था तो उसको skip कर दिया, and it went to set timeout. set timeout का जो भी asynchronous function था वो यहाँ पे आ गया in the call stack. So event loop has done that. Event loop skipped the part of fetch because there was an error, and event loop moved to set timeout because इसके अंदर कुछ print करना है, and once it does that, it prints the print here. So after 5 seconds, it's gonna print me print. Yeah, so you can see here print, right? This is print 1 and this is print. Fine. So that is how it's working. Now have a look. What if let's say interviewer is asking you, why do we need a callback queue? Why there should be a need of callback queue? Because already we are registering the callbacks in our API container. Can't just event loop go to this API container and call this callback? Why we need to have callback queue here? So to give this answer, there are two things which you can answer them. So the first thing which you can answer them is, you can just tell them that if suppose we'll have multiple callbacks, right? Suppose we'll have multiple callbacks. There can be any case when you will have multiple callbacks, right? Let's say that वो पहले वाला जो मैंने कोड लिखा था ना, event handle वाला, when you're clicking the button. So if suppose if I'm clicking the button once, right? So one callback will be created. If I'm clicking the button again, callback second will be created. If I'm clicking the button third time, callback 3 will be created. So there will be multiple callbacks, right? और event loop directly यहाँ API container से इतने सारे callbacks fetch नहीं कर सकता. That's why inside callback queue, these all callbacks will be retaining. These all callbacks will get retained. इसीलिए इसका नाम queue है, right? It will form a queue and one by one event loop will go and it will take out. So callback 1 पहले लेगा, फिर callback 2 it will take, and then callback 3 it will take. So one by one it will take all the callbacks, and that's why we need a callback queue. So that one queue will be there for a callback, so that one by one all the callbacks will be taken by event loop and put it inside the call stack. ठीक है? Another reason what you can give is another answer backs or mutation observer kind of callbacks will come inside this queue. That's why we have callback queue to contain all the normal callback functions, so that microtask queue के पास अलग kind of callbacks हो और callback queue के पास normal kind of callbacks हो. ठीक है? So these two reasons you can give it to them so that they'll be able to know what is the reason behind giving a callback queue. Okay. Another question. Let's say we have a callback 1, right? We have a callback 1 in microtask queue. Okay. And when event loop is understanding, hi Atiq Akhtar, what is microtask queue? I have written it here, you can see, and I've already explained multiple times what is it. So just do one thing, go back, right? Just 10 minutes or 20 minutes back, and you will be able to understand what is microtask queue. Okay. So let's give you a scenario. Okay. Let's say that you have a callback 1, correct? And this is inside microtask queue, right? So event loop will first check whether in the call stack it is empty or not, correct? If it is empty, it's gonna take the microtask queue callback 1 and it's gonna put it inside that call stack, right? So that callback 1 should get executed. Uska jo bhi code hai wo execute ho jaye, correct? But now suppose when it's getting executed, when that callback 1 is getting executed, it is forming another callback. This can happen in any ways. How it will happen, let me show you. Suppose ये set timeout है, right? Let's say that fetch वाला है, right? So in this fetch, what is happening? Inside this fetch, we have another fetch. It's like a nested fetch, right? So first fetch will contain this callback 1. Once this will execute, it will call the another fetch function. So that's gonna create another callback. Again, that's gonna create another callback. Let's say ये procedure चलते जा रहा है, right? It is creating these callbacks again and again, right? And we have one normal callback in our callback queue also, which is because of set timeout. ठीक है. अब क्योंकि priority, because highest priority is always given to microtask queue, it's gonna take this always. Again, it's gonna take this one. Next is gonna take this one. Next is gonna take this one, and then it's gonna take this one, right? But suppose अगर ये चीज़ infinite है, ये चलते जा रहा है, बनते जा रहा है, बनते जा रहा है. Next is also 5, 6, 7. It's never going to stop. It is going. Then this callback is in a standhold position, right? This callback is in a standhold position. That means ये call हो ही नहीं पा रहा है. It's not getting inside the call stack. It's not getting any chance to get inside the call stack. That's why इसका execution नहीं हो पा रहा है. And this stage is called as starvation of the callback queue. Many a times this question will be also asked to you in JavaScript interviews. They will ask you what is a starvation of callback queue. What is the concept behind it? Okay. So you need to tell this, you need to say this, that if suppose in the microtask queue, an infinite number of callbacks has been created, and because the highest priority is given to the microtask queue, and that's why always these callbacks will be executed in the call stack, right? So this callback which is there in the callback queue will never get any chance to get its code executed, and in this position it has become a starvation of the callback queue. Correct? हो गया? Now that we have understood all of those things, there's one confusion which will come into your mind. ठीक है? The one confusion is, first of all, let's not confuse you. Just let me know if you have understood all of these things. I have explained you so many things. I don't know if you have understood this. Please do let me know if you have understood these all things. These are very advanced topics, and that's why I've divided into 4 parts, right? First part में I have explained you how this call stack works. Second में भी मैंने आपको वही बताया, but in a normal way, how to include event loop and all in that. Third maybe I will again come back with same thing, call stack and GC, but again we'll try to understand what is promises and all. Correct? So that's how this thing is designed, and that's how I'm going. So please do let me know if you have any doubts still here. Anybody, any doubt? Suraj, Amit, Ankit, Dhruv, Adnan, Atik, anything. If you have any questions, please do let me know. एक बार फिर से हम लोग रिवाइज करेंगे. We will revise at last for 5 minutes. We will revise it. But before that, any doubts or any questions? If not, then we are going to move ahead. Okay. And let me ask you some questions here. So see, one question will come to your mind. Set timeout हम लोग जब भी use करते हैं, it gives me a time limit, right? It says that 5 seconds wait करना है, and after 5 seconds, it's gonna print, correct? That's what it tells me, right? But have a look. Have a look what is happening. So let me just remove this. ठीक है, इसको हम लोग callback 2 डालेंगे, इसको callback 1. Let's remove this also. So this callback 1 is of your set timeout. This callback 2 is registered of fetch, and because it was fetch, so it came inside microtask queue because it was promise. And this callback came here because it was set timeout, which is a normal callback function, so it came inside callback queue. Fine, done. let's say कि यहाँ पे we have some more lines of code. Okay, and here also we have some more lines of code. Right? So first of all, as we know that begin will get printed, then this is gonna skip it, this is gonna skip this also, and then it will print all of these. If anything is getting printed, then it's gonna print here. Otherwise it will go to completed, it's gonna print that. After that it's gonna work for this also. राइट? अब इतना पूरा काम करने के लिए कम से कम 5 सेकंड तो लग जाएगा. इट विल टेक मोर देन 5 सेकंड्स टू डू दिस. लेट्स से बहुत बड़ा कोड है इसके बीच में, राइट? लेट्स से मोर लाइंस ऑफ कोड्स आर देयर हियर, मोर लाइंस ऑफ कोड्स हियर, राइट? सो दिस विल कीप ऑन रनिंग, मे बी 10 seconds, 20 seconds, जितना टाइम भी लग रहा है, it will take that time, right? But it will not happen that once 5 seconds is completed, it's gonna give me print in between. It's not gonna happen. So if I'm saying that set timeout is saying that after 5 seconds it's gonna print, no. In every case, it's not gonna happen like that. Sometimes even if you have given 5000 milliseconds, which is 5 seconds, sometimes it is gonna take 20 seconds because of your length of the code, right? Because set timeout has given a callback function property, which consists of registering a callback, having it inside microtask or callback queue, and having a property of event loop also. So all these things will take larger time, and call stack will not wait for anything. So call stack will move up and put up all these codes. It will run all of these codes. Okay, so even if you are thinking that मैंने तो 5 seconds दिया है, after 5 seconds it has to print. अगर मैंने millions of codes यहाँ लिखी हुई हैं, if I have written crores and lines of codes or millions lines of codes, even then after 5 seconds it should print. No, it will not. Okay, so set timeout doesn't work how you want to. Okay, set timeout works on the basis of call stack. अगर call stack में कुछ जा रहा है तो वही execute होगा, right? If inside call stack set timeout is not going, till the time set timeout is not going in the call stack, it's not gonna execute. Okay, so in call stack, when set timeout goes, when call stack is empty, when there is no GC. When there is no GC, when call stack is empty, then only is the way when set timeout ka callback function will go to the call stack and it will execute. Okay, so always understand that whatever set timeout is doing, it's wrong. Okay, so set timeout has some of these problems. It does not act well how you want to work, how you want it to work. It does not work like that. Okay, so this is the problem with set timeout. Hi Atik, so you mean async function will only console response once the whole sync code. One second. So you mean async function will only console response once the whole sync code is executed? Yes. Okay. When will be call stack empty? There will be GC in call stack. See, when will the call stack be empty? When your whole code is done. Whole code in the sense, जब ये भी print हो जाए, when this is also getting printed, when this is also getting printed, and when other lines of codes are also getting executed. Don't worry about the callback. Do not worry about the callback. If all the printing things are done, calling of function is done, every logical things are done, then GC will get removed from the call stack. And once GC is getting removed from the call stack, then comes the chance of all the callback functions to get inside it. Okay. Fine. So if anybody is asking you that set timeout में मैंने 5 seconds दिया है, but it is giving me another output, तो आपको बोलना है, you have to say that set timeout doesn't work like that. Set timeout is a callback function, so it will only work after the whole code is completed, after your call stack is done executing the whole code, after the call stack is empty, after the GC is removed from the call stack, then only your set timeout will work. Okay, right? So if you think that fetch का जो callback बन रहा है उसमें 5 सेकेंड लग जा रहा है, right? If it is taking 5 seconds, callback 1 में भी 5 seconds लग रहा है क्योंकि वो set time out है, right? So in total it's gonna take 10 seconds to print me the output. Correct? Because microtask queue is highest priority given, so it's not gonna take much time क्योंकि उसमें time delay नहीं होता. It's just promises and other thing, right? So it's not gonna take much time. It's just gonna take maybe 10 milliseconds or something, 50 milliseconds. And then it's gonna wait for 5 seconds to print this. Correct? So all these things are really important for you to understand, because in Advanced JS, this is what interviewers do ask. Okay? So this is what I wanted to explain you. I wanted to cover promises also, but still it's late. At 9 p.m. I have another session on Advanced JavaScript. I'm going to come back, and that time we are going to understand promises. Okay. Thank you, Atik. I hope everybody else are also understanding this. Okay. If any doubt is there, please do let me know. अगर next session में भी कुछ doubt है तो उसमें भी आप पूछ सकते हैं. And please do let me know if you have any doubts. Okay. Otherwise, we have understood what all things. Let's revise quickly and let's end this stream. And I'm going to come back soon at 9 p.m. again. Okay. So what we are going to do, what we have understood all of these things here is, we first understood how to get a file with an HTTP request. We also understood how to use an add event listener, right? For my callback function, right? Callback function is what? Callback function is a function which passed as an argument to another function. So in this file wala program and in the add event listener wala program, we use the same thing, right? And next we understood about browser, JS engine, and call stack and GC, right? We also understood about callback functions, about the normal functions, call stack के अंदर जो भी चीजें आती हैं, that will get executed no matter what. Also we have understood कि callback functions अगर use हो रहा है तो उसमें वो functions call stack में नहीं जाएंगी, उसके लिए हमें कुछ और चाहिए. क्या चाहिए? Callback queue और event loop. Callback queue के अंदर सारे callbacks का एक queue बन जाता है. Event loop चेक करता है फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल कि कॉल स्टैक खाली होना चाहिए. दैट मीन्स उसमें जीसी भी नहीं होना चाहिए. इफ कॉल स्टैक इज एम्प्टी, देन ओनली इट्स गोना कॉल द कॉलबैक्स फ्रॉम द कॉलबैक क्यू टू द कॉल स्टैक, एंड देन that program will get started working, right? Or that is for only callback queue, which is basically for all the normal callback functions. But if you're using any functions which is having promises and mutation observers, then it's gonna go inside the micro task queue, where it's gonna take and register all the different callbacks, और इसको ज़्यादा highest priority मिलेगा rather than callback queue. So if there is some callback inside micro task queue, that will be given highest priority, and after that callback queue will be given the priority. Okay, so that's all about the microtask queue and callback queue. If suppose there are a lot of microtask queues, so the callback inside the callback queue will be holding, right? And that is a stage which is called as starvation of the callback queue, right? Also, I also told you about one more thing about the seconds, the set timeout. That in the set timeout, basically, it does not act how you write it, right? It is having some trust issues. So set timeout will not work as it is you are writing it, right? If you are citing 5 seconds, it's not that it will take 5 seconds. It depends on the code length, right? It depends on the time complexity. It depends on many of the other factors as well, correct? So, and also, did I explain about something else? One more thing. So callback queue is also called as task queue. Okay. So if somebody is finding it very easy, you can use this word. You can use task queue and micro task queue. Micro task queue will have highest priority. Task queue will have less priority. But some of the students will get confused between these two. So if you're getting confused, please use callback queue as the name. You can use both the names wherever you want. Fine. So this was a great session. I hope you have understood all of these things. And this was a really important session because the next sessions we are going to understand currying, promises, and all of the top level topics in JavaScript. So please do join those as well. Today I'm going to come back again at 9 p.m. where I'm going to take Advanced JavaScript session part 3, and I'm going to teach you something about promises, right? And we'll see how promises works. Okay. So I hope you liked the session. If you have liked it, then please give me a thumbs up in the live chat. It will be really good. I'll be able to understand that, okay, this session was really good. And please join the Telegram channel as well, so that you get an update in the notifications in the Telegram channel, so that you get to know when I'm coming live, with what topic, at what time. Also, please do join the YouTube Also, please do subscribe the YouTube channel, which is CodeBeyond, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any notifications when I'm coming live. And please like and share. If you're liking this, please like it. Thank you so much for liking. And also please share it with your relatives and other classmates and other people. Okay, they will also get to know that this free course content is going. I do not want anything. I just want audience. I want that more number of people should get to know about this sessions. Okay. Yeah, Atik, please do join, and please do watch other previous sessions as well. I have explained the other sessions also very nicely, I believe. Go ahead and have a look and try to give me a feedback. Like, it will be really good. Thank you so much, guys. I'll meet you really soon, which is at 9 p.m. So bye bye, take care.